The cameraman and occasional narrator is David Hart, grandson of Virginia Edna Hammond Hart, who's going to share some of her memories and what she remembers about her parents and her life, and also show us some of the things that she has in her house. Mom, could you tell me, I might refer to her as Virginia sometimes, and I might refer to her as Mom, but it's all the same person. Could you tell me a little bit about what you know about how your parents met and when they met?
Oh, when my parents met, my father was a plumber working in Baltimore, and he worked with the barns. And this barn, my mother's maiden name was Barnes. Estella, can't think of her name now, but she had a long name.
But it was Estella Barnes.
Estella Virginia Barnes. I was named after her. My father's friend, yes, knew Estella Barnes, and he was related to her, and he thought she was a cute little witty lady, and he told Dad that he wanted him to meet Estella Barnes. It was a cousin or something of his, that she was such a witty, fun person. So Dad went up and he met my mother. So I don't know if his friend had planned that way or not. So anyway, they got married. I don't know if they went together too long. I don't think so, because it's a long ways from Baltimore up to Carroll County, with transportation being as it was then. And I know they used to go on excursions on the train up to Thurmont, Western Maryland, because I've seen pictures of it, and Dad would talk about going up there on a Sunday excursion. So how he got up there, I don't know.
What year did your parents marry?
They got married in 1917, and my mom was a farmer's daughter, and I mean, she worked hard on the farm. And anyway, they went to Baltimore, and she was making hats for a while. But the city life wasn't for my mother. It wasn't for my father, because my father wanted to farm. And he'd never farmed before, and I don't know if he should have farmed or not. I don't know. They were so darn poor, and I don't know. But we, all of us kids, enjoyed the farm an awful lot. It was 9 of us, so thank goodness we didn't live in the city. And
Now,
and anyway, let's see. Oh yeah, Mom was making hats in Baltimore, and she soon got tired of that, and they went back. I guess she had the farm in her country in her blood, and so she and Dad bought a farm on Thornton Mill Road near Cockeysville. Although the address was Sparks, Maryland, but we lived closer to Cockeysville than we did Sparks. It's in Hunt Valley, rich man's country now. And we lived in a stone house, which I just loved. It was built in 1810. It had the stone with the date carved in it at the corner of the house.
let me come back to that a little later. I hear that your mother didn't think very much of Southerners.
Oh no, she fought the Civil War all her life, and she married a sweet, lovable Southerner. He must have swept her off her feet, because my mom was 24 years old, and maybe she just was, in those days, women got married young, and she was being considered an old maid, which wasn't a very nice thing to be considered as, and so probably Dad swept her off her feet, because he had these sweet, charming Southern ways.
And she didn't like that Southerners were soft, in her opinion?
She said the Southerners were soft, And my mother was everything but soft and affectionate. She says she was English and Pennsylvania Dutch, and I tell you, she was a very proud woman and a hard worker, and she did the best she knew how. She was a perfectionist, and can you imagine how hard it was to be a perfectionist and have a family of, she had 12 children and raised 9 of them, and have all these kids running around, and when she had to milk cows, and she helped in the fields, my dad in the fields getting the harvest in, and I did too.
So your before they bought the farm, do you know what kind of work your father did in Baltimore? Or did
He was a farmer.
Oh, a plumber.
Plumber, and he put in the sprinkler systems of the big department stores in Baltimore, Washington, and Pittsburgh.
Now, once they moved to the farm, he worked on the farm and didn't
Just
work.
on the farm.
But your mother worked off the farm some?
Yes, she did. She, I guess maybe it was maybe she did because it just was a different life than she'd been doing all her life, working on the farm, and she was out with people. Mom liked people. My dad did too. And so when she worked in the orchard, that's where my husband met her, Harry. He worked there and he liked Mom. And so Mom told him that she had a daughter, a good-looking daughter. I don't know how good-looking it was, but better looking
so
than
beautiful.
I am now.
You looked so beautiful. We'll see some pictures a little later.
And so he came down one Monday night, and I had cleaned the dining room. Everything was sparkling. We had an old sideboard. My mother kept, it was a beautiful oak sideboard. It had lots of glass in it and shells on it. And
you cleaned it because you knew that Harry was coming?
no, I didn't know he was coming. I just cleaned the dining room, and everything sparkled. The dishes sparkled. I'd wash them, and I scrubbed the floor on my hands and knees, and probably the kitchen floor too. So I was a dirty mess, and I didn't. Can you imagine getting down with the dress dragging and scrubbing the floor by hand? And so he came in and asked me to go up to see a girl he worked with in the orchard, Libby Ryan. So I went upstairs and I washed myself up. You had water, took water up to the bedroom and had a wash bowl and pitcher, and I washed up and put on clean clothes. I couldn't go any place like I looked. And so we walked up to Libby Ryan's, and so I knew the Ryans very well, and Harry had worked with Libby in the orchard. And anyway, they were sitting on the swing, and I was sitting on the porch on the steps talking to her sister and her mother. And anyway, in talking to Libby, Harry found out she was 13 years old, so he never went to see her after that. We started going together.
And you were 18.
And he was 18.
And he was 18 too.
Oh, he was cute. He had black curly hair, which I liked.
Mm-hmm. And he was a gentleman.
Oh, very nice. Had the southern ways, which really gets you.
Got your mother too. Okay. Tell me about a relative of yours who went west to make their fortune.
Oh, my mother's grandmother. I don't know when Grandma Barnes was born. I can look it up. I think I might have it here. But anyway, they had a place in Finksburg, and then if you had an acre or 2 or 3, you could sort of be independent on it. You'd have your cow, your hogs, your chickens, and of course you had your garden. Everybody can then. We didn't have freezers, and you could be pretty independent. But then came the gold rush, and Grandma Barnes and her husband decided they wanted to go west to seek gold. And they only got as far as Ohio because they got hungry and came back home and they hadn't found any gold. But I don't know if there was any gold in Ohio or not. But then they went in a covered wagon and tramps would come around begging for food. There was a lot of them in those days, and even when I was a girl, there was some people that just roamed around, gypsies or just roamed around, and they, I think, well, jobs were hard to get, but then sometimes those kind of people just don't want a job. They just want to make their living wherever somebody will hand out to them. And anyway, they would have these dogs, big dogs with them, and they would threaten to sick them on my grandmother if she didn't give them something to eat. So I guess she gave them what she had, probably bread and some syrup.
Help run her out of money a little sooner. So do you have any idea about when it would have been that they went west?
I don't know. I could look at the family tree and see, I may have when Grandma Barnes was born, but it was before my mother's time. My mother was born in 1892,
Okay.
and her grandmother was, I don't know when she was born.
Now, you had another relative who ran canal boats?
Oh, that was my grandfather's mother. My grandfather's father came from Ireland, or what's the other?
Scotland. Ireland or Scotland?
Scotland, I don't know which. And his father was my grandfather's father was a preacher, and he came to Western Maryland. And my mom said when the old man died, it must have been my grandfather's father. I don't know. She just referred to him as the old man died. She bought some horses or mules and drove a towboat along the canal from Western Maryland to Washington. And my grandfather rode up on the mules, or whatever. I think it was mules they used then. And they said he was contrary. His mother asked him, his name was Clinton Hammond. Clint, you want some syrup on bread? He'd say, no, I want bread on syrup.
So he was on the mules and she was on the boat?
Yes. And someone asked her, wasn't she afraid he'd fall in? And she says, no, she wasn't afraid he'd fall in the water. And he didn't.
Maybe
But
he should have been afraid she'd fall
man,
in.
and I do remember him, remember seeing him, and then he got us, when Dad was 14, he moved from Virginia to Baltimore, and he was, that's when he took up the apprentice to be a plumber in Baltimore, and he was 14, he was born in 1886, so.
1900.
What year was that?
It'd be 1900.
1900. And the girls went to work in the cotton mills in Woodbury. They had a lot of cotton mills, and I visited the cotton mill one time. It was a noisy place because I was used to living out in the country without too many people around. But they worked there, and they enjoyed it. Well, they were making some money. I don't know what they made an hour, but it wasn't a whole lot. It was better than nothing. So, where was I? And then Dad started farming. I don't know how long they lived in Baltimore, and then, at first they lived in Finksburg where I was born. And then Mom went to Baltimore with him. And then Dad bought this farm at Thornton Mill Road at Sparks. It had a beautiful stone house. I can see it yet. It was a beautiful house. It's still standing. You know, the houses they build in Europe last for centuries. And when I lived in the house, it was over 100 years old. It was built in 1810. Mm-hmm. And the barn was built in 1807. It was a stone with the date carved in it. A beautiful big bank barn, but then that burned down. My dad kept his car in the top of it, and he was trying to start it, and it backfired and caught the chaff and stuff on the floor on fire and burnt the barn down. I don't know whatever happened to his vehicle, whether he pushed it out or not. But I wasn't there when it happened. I came home. I'd been in Baltimore visiting. I would go visit Baltimore. My aunt would buy me some clothes, and I'd get the clothes, and I couldn't wait to get back to the country.
Which aunt?
Aunt Bertha, Aunt Bertha. They said I looked like her. So anyway, she liked me. Well, she had daughters older than I, beautiful daughters. But anyway, I'd go to Baltimore a year, I guess, and then go back to the country.
And one of those weeks you came back and there was only a stone foundation for the barn, and the rest of it had burnt?
It was a beautiful bank barn that burnt down. Beautiful. I can remember the grain bins in it. Nice tight grain bins for your wheat and your shelled corn, so I know one time they had told me not to go back in the grain bins, and I went back in the grain bin one day, not because they told me not to, I'd forgotten about it, and I saw something red with wheels on it. It was a tricycle that someone got my brother for Christmas, and I thought I had done something wrong. I didn't even inquire about it. I ran out of the grain bin, and I never said anything to anyone about that tricycle because they had told me not to go in the grain bins, and I was an obedient kid at that time.
And so then this was a little before Christmas then, and he got that tricycle for Christmas. So you were born in Finksburg. Your parents were living with your mother's parents, is that right?
Yes, for a while.
And then they moved to Baltimore for a while. And your mother worked and made hats, and your father was doing plumbing and sprinklers. And then he bought the farm for $5,000 at Thornton Mill Road. No.
He sold it for $5,000.
He sold it for $5,000. Do you know what he paid for it?
No, I do not know.
But then
it was 87 acres.
Okay. And how long did you live at Thornton Mill Road?
Oh, I went there, I think I was over a year old, but wasn't 2 years old. For some reason, I had figured that I was 19 months old. Wasn't 2. I don't know where I got the figures. I've got to look in my book and dates again. And I was 15 when we sold it.
Mm-hmm. So about 15
But we had sold it and didn't have any place to go, so Mom put beds up in the barn. Dad had a barn built on the foundation of the beautiful bank barn, and so she put beds in there, and we slept in the barn. Because they couldn't leave because they had cows to milk, and it was summertime, and she was canning, and then we rented a house nearby, and Mom and Dad would walk down to the farm every day. It was over a mile, I know. It was a good ways, and she would stay all day, and I stayed home with, I don't know how many kids they had, how many we had then.
Now, where was the farm that they bought when you were 15?
At Shane, up the upper part of Baltimore County.
And so that's, and when you married Harry, did you live there?
I lived with them for a while.
Right.
And then we would go housekeeping for a while, then I'd come back. My mom said she wasn't going to let me come home anymore because when I left, she missed my kids so much. They were just a little younger than my 3 sisters.
Uh-huh. So then, where did you live after you got married and you'd stay with your father for a while? And where did you and Harry move after that?
We rented a house near Stewartstown, near the orchard where he worked, and he walked to work. And we rented a house. I don't know how long we lived there. It was a half of a house. I remember we gave $5 a month, but it didn't have it. It did have electricity, but it didn't have water in it.
Uh-huh. And did you have any children at that point?
Lester was born there, and then when I went back home for a while, and Janet was born in Shane,
Okay.
my parents' home.
And then after you'd been back home for a while, where did the two of you
Oh,
and
my.
Janet and Lester move?
We were gypsies. We moved to Washington because Harry got a job working on the Social Security building, and it was a hard job, and he was a small person. And we lived in a one-room apartment, 3rd floor. Oh my gosh.
He was carrying mortar for the construction?
Yeah, on his shoulders. And of course his shoulders hurt, and Lester would say, "My shoulder hurts this morning." He would talk about his job. And my poor kids got so pale looking, living in a room when they'd been used to running out outside. And then we rented an apartment with 2 rooms, a kitchen and a bedroom, which was nicer. And then we moved to Virginia, and I lived in 2 houses in Virginia. See. Oh, one house was in town. That was the last one I lived in the Clifton. The other was out in the country in Clifton. And
Was he still working on the Social Security building?
no, he was doing a different work. I think he was working on a road, and I don't know which road it was. And he was working on a road. So, and then we went back home, and I stayed for quite a while until we bought the farm. And I worked at Bendix.
Back home to Shane?
Mm-hmm, Shane. I worked at Bendix for 22 months. Then Harry went in the service. He was
He worked at Bendix before he went in the service too.
Yeah, he worked at Bendix, and I did too. And I wasn't driving; I'd ride in with him. And he was called in under 26. When he was 25, he was drafted in the service for 19 months.
In 1944.
Mm-hmm.
And so then after he returned from World War II, well, actually, let me take an opportunity here to get another question off my list taken care of. Harry tried to teach you how to drive before he went away to war, right? Or was it?
Yes, before. Yeah. And I tell you, never let your husband teach you to drive. They tell you all the rules in one sentence and expect you to remember them. And of course, my driving didn't suit him too much. I didn't know how to turn right when he told me to turn right. I didn't know which way to turn the steering wheel. I wasn't used to having wheels.
And but then when he went away to war, you learned how to drive.
I really learned how to drive.
Did you have anyone help you, or you just practiced?
Oh, I went every place, but I didn't get picked up. Mm-hmm. And then I got my license, and that was nice to know that you were legal.
Yep. So then when he returned from World War II, he went to work at Bendix again?
Oh, yes, he did.
And
we I moved to the farm. We had bought a farm before he went in the service. And then when he went in the service, I thought, well, this is my home. And the home where I was living at home was bursting with people. So I moved to the farm. And I had bought, Mom and Dad gave me a wheelbarrow. That was my first farm equipment, our first farm equipment. And Dad gave me a calf, and I started raising calves. And I tell you, that was something. I had 10 of them in a pen at one time. And can you imagine those wet noses touching you all over? All the calves wanted to be near you, sucking your clothes or whatever. And anyway, I don't know how many animals I raised. I wish I kept count of them. It must have been hundreds. Because I raised a couple herds, raised heifers until they were big enough to breed, and then people would buy them, and then we raised bulls because people acquired a taste for a red hamburger, and the bull. Oh, first of all, we steered the bulls, and they were a gangly, ugly-looking bunch because
Now, what for some of the younger people, what does steering a bull mean?
it's to castrate them.
Uh-huh.
And castrate them, and they don't grow pretty like a bull that hasn't been castrated. They don't have the shine and the bloom and the plumpness. They're just scrawny, ugly-looking things.
But they're easier to manage?
Well, the bulls weren't hard to manage if you had all bulls, but you don't have any heifers in there with them.
But steers you could have with heifers, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why you steered them?
Yeah, and because bulls weren't popular to sell for meat. The steer was, but people used to say you may as well cut off the head when you cut off that end, and that's true. They're not very pretty.
So you were on the farm while he was at war, and he returned, and you continued to work on the farm raising calves and milking cows. And he went back to work at Bendix. And what happened next?
Well, we started shipping milk. I did work one winter in the canning house, and I would take the milk out, pay it to the stand, and put it on the stand on the way to work. And well, Harry was farming then. He wasn't working.
Uh-huh.
He got laid off, and then he was off for 3 years, and then he went back. They called him back. Thank goodness, we were happy about that. So, and then see, when we lived on the farm, he worked at Bendix for a long time. Even after we sold the farm, we lived there for 22 years. And I mean to tell you, I worked hard on that farm. I used to rake the hay, and you would put it in windrows. A windrow is, you had a dump rake, and you would dump so that it's a long row. You raise the dump rake so the hay that had caught in that would drop out, and then you would go along, and you had a long windrow of hay. So you go along and you stack it in little piles because you threw it up on the wagon loose. We didn't bale it then. And then, I don't think, wait a minute. Yeah, that's what I did. I don't know when we started to bale hay, but we did put it in loose, the barn loose. And of course, at that time I must have been I was in my 20s. So, and then later, we would have it baled and put in the barn.
So he went back to work at Bendix, and then eventually he changed jobs. Right?
Oh, but not for a long time. He only worked for the telephone company less than 12 years before he retired.
And how long had he worked at Bendix altogether?
29 years.
Is that including the 3 years he was laid off?
No, that was...
29 years that he was working, plus the 3 years in the middle he was laid off. And then, so, did he retire from Bendix then and started the telephone company? Or was he laid off again? Or
he was laid off again, and he was laid off, and he worked at, I can't think of the place. He worked at a place where they made little things for, I forget the name of the store. And he said he really worked. They didn't take a break for anything. And then he went to get a job at the telephone company. And the nicest lady interviewed him, and he told her, he says, looking at my resume, would that be it, resume? Would you hire me? And I kind of think that's sad because he was so humble about it. But she said, yes, Mr. Hart, says you will be hearing from me. And he that made him very happy to start working for the telephone company. And he started at the same rate as he was getting at Bendix, which was $1.39 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when he started working at Bendix, since we worked at night, we got 50 cents an hour. But that's the way things were then.
That was more than the people who worked during the day?
Yeah.
Yep. And what did Harry do at the telephone company?
Oh, he had his own office, and he ordered stationery that the telephone company would use a lot of stationery, envelopes and stationery, and it was a job with dignity, and he could, he could have dressed up. He could have worn a tie, but he wasn't one to wear a tie. But he wore casual clothes and looked very nice. He didn't have to.
You say casual, but it was a button shirt.
Yeah, button shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And slacks.
Yeah.
Wasn't jeans.
No, it wasn't jeans. He never wore jeans to work.
And I visited him once towards the end of his career at the phone company, and I remember all sorts of stationery and other office supplies too, pens and papers, staplers.
Yeah.
He had an engraver for putting, making nameplates for people's offices on their desks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
The telephone company, Harry was, what do you call it, prejudiced against black people, and his boss was a black man, a very nice man. But Harry and they had agreed that if either one of them had anything to say, they would say it. So I don't know, but they got along very well. And he was an educated man, and he had a beautiful voice on the phone. You never dreamed that he was black. He didn't have that accent. Well, they don't have it anymore, do they?
Not as much, no.
No.
There's a different accent you can sometimes pick up, sort of an urban. So then he retired from the phone company when?
I don't know what year it was. I don't know what year. I could look.
It would have been probably in the 80s, in the 1980s, I think, because I remember visiting him.
Oh, it was, because I retired in 1983, and he retired, and he talked me into retiring. I wanted to work some more, earn some more money. I liked my job so much.
Now, so let's back up a moment. You sold your farm eventually, and that was somewhat your doing, right?
It sure was my doings, because I got tired of being unpaid hard hand.
After 22 years of farming?
I told Harry, I wasn't angry at him, we weren't arguing or anything, but I remember, I think I was 47, and I said, Harry, I'll go along with this until I'm 50. If things don't change, I'm going to leave you.
And he did the right thing, he sold his farm.
I never said any more, not right away, then he decided to sell it.
And you bought the house in Jarrettsville.
Oh my. I was really living when I went to Jarrettsville. Had a lovely home, and we had a lovely yard. Harry, he still was working.
Now, did you start working soon after you moved to Jarrettsville? Or had you been working before you moved?
Well, I worked 22 months at Bendix, and then I started working. I worked 17 years at EMC.
Right, and when was that you started at EMC? Was that while you still had the farm, or after you moved to Jarrettsville?
Oh, after I moved to Jarrettsville. We moved to Jarrettsville in the spring, and
in the early 60s.
Yeah, then I got a job. I don't know if we were gone from there a year or not. About a year, and then I got a job and stayed on for 17 years to 1983.
And Tell me a little bit more about the house at Jarrettsville and why you liked it compared to the
I
farm.
liked it. The house was 9 years old, and it was a beautiful house, and it looked like it was a brand new house. I kept thinking of it as my brand new house because the people had 2 teenagers almost out of school when they lived there, so it was really in nice shape, and painted well, and had hardwood floors, which I covered with rugs, which was a dumb thing to do. So
well, you know, it was nice for your grandchildren visiting and
yeah.
playing on the floor with
Oh
Harry.
my,
It was nice to have
we
carpet.
had a lot of picnics there because I had a beautiful lawn, and Harry built.
It was a big lot, right?
It was 2 acres.
Yeah.
And Harry built a barn and a garden house, and he worked so hard there. He was always doing something, painting or something. It just took all his time to keep it up, but it was kept up beautifully. And he built a fence, a board fence around. Well, Robin, we got Robin a pony, and so he built a paddock for the pony.
Tell me about the different rooms in the house in Jarrettsville.
Oh, it had one nice thing about it, you drove into the garage. It was so nice. And there was 1 step in the house, and 1 step, maybe 2 steps from the front door. But probably only 1. And it had a beautiful family room. It was 17 by 24 feet, and with the beautiful pine paneling and
Knotted pine.
And they were individual boards. They weren't
Paneling.
Right. And then it had a linoleum. It had the concrete floor with the blocks of linoleum on it. Well, I covered that with a rug. It was a little bit warmer, but there was a spot in the floor that was warm where the hot water had baseboard hot water, and after not used to heat in the house, oh my, it was comfortable. And then I had a laundry room before you got to the kitchen, and it had a nice kitchen. It was divided into to a breakfast room and a kitchen, and then I had a dining room, and then I had a beautiful living room with mahogany paneling, real boards. They weren't as thick or as wide as the knotty pine, but they were individual boards, very beautiful mahogany paneling. And then I had 3 bedrooms and a bathroom and a powder room between the kitchen and the family room, in a hall like.
And then next to the dining room and living room, you had a covered porch.
Oh yeah, I had a porch.
And that faced out towards the paddock.
Yeah.
Which is where you had all of your shindigs.
Yeah.
And tell me about your shindigs.
Oh my gosh, sometimes there'd be 60 people there. I had something at between Christmas and New Year's, and then at Easter, and then I had a picnic in the summer where everyone come. And usually in the summer it was around in August, and I celebrated my mother's birthday. And she lived to be 88. And I have pictures of her birthday celebrations.
Yep, you had a large family and a lot of them showing up for your
Oh,
get-togethers.
they did. And I used to always just get things from the garden and cook it. I thought, oh, I'm not spending much. I'm not spending much for my picnic, but really I had the best things there was to eat because I got them right from the garden and cooked them. Beets and
green beans.
And green beans and parsley potatoes and potatoes. I had everything. And then I'd bake a lot of pies and cakes. I had energy those days.
And as you came into the driveway of that house, there was a flower bed next to the pasture, next to the paddock.
Flower bed on one side of the driveway, and on the other side I had a little one across the walk from the family room. I have pictures of them. It was pretty.
And later on, out in the paddock, you had a flower garden there as well?
I had a garden there. It started out to be a place to raise corn.
Oh, okay.
Because we had a nice garden, and it was rich because we had a pony, and my neighbor had manure, so Harry manured it good, and it did grow a lot of vegetables. And then we had this other, I called it my other garden. We raised corn in it, and sweet potatoes, and sunflowers. And there was a lot of blue jays around, and the pine trees that bordered. Well, we had pine trees bordering the property, and the blue jays would sit up in the pine trees, and they see you coming up towards those sunflowers, and they would scold you like everything. You were getting into their food. And I can remember, I enjoyed it. I really did.
And the first garden was next to the
next
barn.
to the barn and the garden
and
house.
fenced off from the paddock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you couldn't have a pony running around your garden.
And I remember you had grapevines on the
grapevines,
side yard.
And then I had peach trees there, and 2 apple trees, and 2 plum trees, and Harry would spray them, and he hated to spray. I guess maybe his lung cancer was starting to develop, and he didn't like to spray. So he cut them down. I think Herbie got the wood. He was burning wood then, and because we lived near orchards, and I'd go to the orchards and pick the fruit, and you didn't have. Actually, it was cheaper for us. We didn't have to buy the spray. We could get just what we wanted. Before, when we raised the fruit, I would use all the apples that had rotten places in them and give away the good ones.
Made apple butter out of the ones that had rotten.
Canned apples, and then they were good apples. Had a good taste.
You canned a lot of things out of your garden.
Oh, I did. I canned beets, beans, green beans, and then I would buy canned fruit, pears and peaches and applesauce, and then plums. I even canned some plums, and cherries. I had a good cherry tree. They were the red cherries, and I would open up a jar of peaches and a jar of cherries and mix them together, and it was really tasty.
Now your basement was almost as big as the house.
Oh, the basement was, it was, except for the family room. My house was 86 feet long, and I feel as though the basement was, probably the garage was 20 feet or 24 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
So the basement was
62 feet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how wide, 24, 26 feet wide.
Kind of a high ceiling for a basement, as I remember.
Oh, it was a nice basement. It had windows in it. It was light. And one time, a skunk got in there and stayed a week. I had made soap. I used to make soap, and then I graded it up, and I had it in crocks in this, what I call my canning room, where Harry built shelves, and I'd put my canned goods on the shelves. And anyway, I remember one Sunday I smelled skunk real closely, but then that wasn't unusual because skunks came around. We lived in the country, and so anyway, I went down there on Saturday, and there that skunk was in my canning room, and so I wanted to get him out, and you don't dare excite a skunk. So he was a little fella, and so, I don't know, Harry was helping me. We had cardboard, and so we guided him, and he was a young one. He could hardly make it up the steps. He was so short.
They're tall steps, too.
Mm-hmm. And he made it up, and the garage door was open, and he ran on out in the fields. I bet he was glad But, you know, he probably ate a lot of bugs down there because they do eat insects.
But I bet he was glad to see the sunlight again.
I bet he didn't, that soap didn't taste very good. It was in an open container.
Now, while you were living there, you converted from an oil furnace to a
coal furnace. What we did, we had well, Harry liked to burn coal. He grew up in the coal mines, and we bought a coal furnace and we had them hooked together, and it did save us a lot of money every year.
Yeah, you converted part of the basement into a coal bin.
Yeah, I did.
And you could fill it from outside.
Outside. So I had that to clean up when I moved, all the coal.
And Harry would go downstairs and shovel the coal from the
Yeah, I never did it, but he said he wasn't going to do it the next year because I think his lungs was getting pretty bad. He would get short of breath.
I remember that. So it was self-stoking. You put the coal in a
it was
hopper.
Nice.
It was I think it was called rice coal, or
no, it was not rice. Rice is real fine. This was regular size coal, the big pieces. Mm-hmm. It was hard coal, and the big pieces, not the rice. The rice is real fine.
Big pieces like the size of a lima bean, or
oh no, more
much
like
bigger.
More like an
egg
baseball.
Oh, okay.
And it would be assorted sizes because it had been broken up, but it was big.
And then Harry died.
Mm-hmm.
And you moved to Chestertown.
Yeah, I stayed there 2 years after he passed away, and I had someone to help. I could mow the lawn because I had a real nice tractor, but then I had something to take up the grass. I forget what it's called, grass bag? Well, it had a heavy steel door on the back of it. And to empty it, you had to remove that heavy steel door. And I was doing that, and I thought I'd almost strained my back one time. So I thought, well, gee, I can't afford to strain my back. So then I had somebody to help me. I'd had them to take up the grass and empty the hopper. It held 28 bushel.
Why did you pick Chestertown?
Oh, my son lived there, so I bought a house across the street from him.
That's where we are now.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to wrap up our part sitting down here, and we'll move on to you showing us some of the things you have around the house.
Okay. This is a lamp that I used to take to bed every night when I was a kid, to take a light to. We didn't have electricity, and take this lamp, but it has lost the fittings that where the wick goes and the glow. But it's a beautiful little lamp, and it has some kind of little flowers on it. And it was an old lamp when I was a little girl, but it doesn't have anything on the bottom that tells you anything. It has some kind of swirls.
So you would carry that lamp up to your room at night?
Yes, I did, and then blow it out and get in bed, because you didn't leave the lamp burn all night. It's a teapot. My grandmother was going to live with us when we lived in Thornton Mill Road, and she was going to have the living room for her room, and she got this. I don't know whether she bought it or she had it, this teapot, but I don't remember using it, but it's a beautiful teapot, and they used to have a lot of them like this, enameled with the blue and the white.
It's made of metal.
It's metal.
Yeah.
And here's another one that I don't know if my mother ever used. Well, it hadn't been used for a long time because I can see right through it. It has holes in the bottom. So, but this is the kind of teapots I used to have. Or maybe coffee pots too, but it doesn't have any fittings inside of it.
So that one the bigger one came from your mother?
Yeah, my mother, and it was old when I was a little girl, but it's It's a beautiful blue enamel over metal. So anyway, but very beautiful, sort of a blue well, it's a Japanese design because here's a Japanese style house or Chinese style house.
A pagoda?
My mother gave it to me. I remember her bringing it in to me, but I don't know where she got it, but she didn't have it when I was growing up. I was living in Jarrettsville when I got it.
What was that used for?
Put vegetables in, or vegetable soup. It had a lid on it, and Harry was cleaning the top of my cupboard and he broke it, and I cried like a baby because my mother had given it to me.
Okay, tell me about this picture.
Well, my mother had it ever since I could remember, and they had lots of, this design was on lots of crocks and pottery. It's a very heavy picture. We used to have milk in it served for a meal. I don't know what you call that design, but I remember a lot of things had that blue on the pottery.
Looks like maybe fish in the design, or trees, or is it just abstract?
No, it's not trees. It's just a little
Pattern.
design on it. And the picture was made out was pottery, and you can see where it came off.
Ah, so it had a handle originally, but it didn't when your mother used it for milk?
No, it did when she used it for milk.
It did, I see.
Oh,
How did you come into that copper vase?
Korea. Made in Korea is on the bottom. And that's where I thought we got it.
Who got it?
Les got it, gave it to me, and see on the bottom it has Korea.
Okay.
We moved to Shane when I was 15. How many years ago has that been? I'm 86.
So that's a 61.
61. And this was up in the attic. It's a salt holder. That's how they kept their salt, with an open top. And you see it has holes in it.
And a flat back.
Yeah. Hung it on the wall. And that's how they kept their salt, see? It has holes in it.
Reach in and grab a pinch of salt. But you didn't use it for salt.
No, we just let it set around. But isn't it?
Okay, what do you have there?
Instant coffee jar. Lester must have been a teenager when he bought this. And when instant coffee came out, they had made these little jars to put it in. It's a very neat looking little jar. He must have been a teenager, and he's 67 now. So it's over 40 years old.
So yeah, it's over 50 years old. And then, what else is there?
My mother's wine jug. My mom used to put wine in this jug. It's a pottery jug. It doesn't have anything special on the bottom. But what she had was a corn cob to stick in that hole. And the corn cob smelled like wine for years and years. And like a dummy, I threw it away. Why didn't I leave it there? Because that's how I always saw it, with the corn cob in it.
And you have a picture?
A picture. This is a picture Lester got me for my 25th wedding anniversary. I think he was still home. And it's a pewter. And on the bottom it has...
So that would have been 1961, would have been your 25th wedding anniversary.
Holland pewter. made in Holland. And then it has a crown, and then KMD, and then teal.
Let's see if we can. Okay.
Genuine Holland gin, imported by J.H. Friedenwald and Company, 103 to 111 North Utah Street, Baltimore, Maryland. And my mother always had this, and I don't know how old it is. I don't think it had a handle on it that I remember. But I guess...
You guess they got it in Virginia?
No.
No. They got their gin in.
Yeah. In this kind of neat way. It's not a bottle. It's made out of pottery. The genuine Holland gin.
Now these black painted platters, enameled trays.
He must have been 12 years old when he got those for me.
Larry gave those to
And
you.
he's 62 now, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. You're asking the wrong person, my mom. But they sure are pretty.
Aren't they pretty?
The color looks better on the tape than it does in real light in here. Okay. When was this platter given to you?
It has the wrong date on it. It has 10/18. It was 10/24/86.
And it says happy 50th anniversary to Harry
You know
and Ginny.
what? I think one of Derwent's kids gave that to me. And Mary and Eugene gave me one of these. Maybe they gave me this one.
And the third one has some initials on it.
H&G, isn't it?
Yep. It sure has a nice finish. We can see your wall and your window in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
They're pretty, aren't
HHG.
they?
Yes.
Picture. I bought the pitcher and wash bowl myself from Pennsylvania. I gave $60 for the pieces. But the design they have on it, they threw it away if they made that picture. So I don't know why they did it. I don't know if it was old when I bought it or not. Nancy gave me the little stand.
On the top shelf we have a pitcher and wash basin. And on the bottom I said, what is that?
It's it's a water jug. It's a water jug. It's a water jug. I'm wrong. You put water in it. No, you put water in this. Hey, wait a minute.
So maybe it's a water jug, maybe it's a chamber pot?
I think it's a chamber pot. I bought that in Shrewsbury.
Okay, what do we have?
I gave $15 for it. Oh. I don't know. I don't know.
It's.
Can you read it?
I think it's someone's name, unless that's. I don't think that's Arizona. I think it's someone's name. Jan Garcia is the name across the bottom, but I don't know what's underneath the label. Oh, and this one says Acoma, and that's what this says too. Is Acoma.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the name of a town. Oh, NM. I bet you this is NM, Acoma, New Mexico.
Yeah.
But how did you come into these?
Oh, Harry and Lester took a car out to
Alicia.
and they stopped, and he bought that home for me.
Do you think that came from New Mexico as well, that
No,
geode?
I probably. Do you know where you lived in Indiana, there was a field that had a lot of these geodes, and that's where I got it. Okay. No, I'm wrong. Vancouver Island, 986. Vancouver.
That's near Seattle.
Yeah. I was wrong about that, wasn't I? Okay, let's just say Vancouver Island, USA, huh?
Oh, Vancouver Island's actually in Canada, in British Columbia. That's where
so
the
that
city of
wasn't-
Vancouver is.
No, this is wrong about him. I must have got them myself.
At least those two, but maybe the third one was from somewhere else, the one that's not marked.
I had gotten geodes, and I had some that was real pretty inside, and where they are, I don't know, that I had picked up. That must have been it. A field in Indiana. There was a lot of them laying on the ground.
Okay, second tape.
It's a Rumford baking powder jar. Janet found it in some junk. When she had her house built, there was some trash had been thrown in the woods, and she found it. And Rumford is a baking powder, and I guess it came in a glass container. I've only seen them in cans. And then on the bottom,
Some darkness behind it to be able to see.
on the bottom it has a 6 and then a 35. Am I holding it right?
And some sort of crest or seal in the middle.
See,
Okay.
this is a gravy boat that my brother gave me. He worked for someone down near Cockeysville, and they gave it to him.
You have a lot of brothers.
Harry Ellsworth.
Who's
It has-
known to us as Unc.
It has a. Is it Ye Old Willa on the?
Indeed. And Crim Wades.
Trent on
Stoke-on-Trent, England.
England.
It's pretty.
Something I got Robin, and she never liked it. It's hand painted in Holland and has some kind of a symbol in 542. But Robin never liked this, and I think it's so cute.
And you got it when she was very young.
Very young.
So. Okay.
I don't know what this is. I think this is something that Lester had some booze in. But it has all kinds of numbers on the bottom of it.
Yeah, it's not that old because it's indicating its capacity in milliliters.
No, it isn't real old, but it's pretty.
Mm-hmm. And then the blue glass.
Mm-hmm. I think they used to put Alka-Seltzer in these blue glasses. It doesn't have anything on the bottom. And I've lost my flowers. Oh well. I don't know.
Show us that bottle.
I don't know. Maybe Brady could tell you all about it. It looks like a whiskey bottle, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little sampler.
Wait a minute, let me. 1/10 of a pint.
So I think you were right about it being a whiskey bottle or other hard liquor.
On it. Extra quality. Extra quality. It's a soap, bottom of a soap dish. It was old when I was a little girl.
And so you used it while you were growing up?
Probably it's been used. It has stains in it and chipped.
And what's the other piece that you have down?
Oh, Lester and Janet got this out of the gutter next to the farm. It's real patent ironstone.
Tilt it a little towards me. Yeah, that's great.
And it has a lion. No, it has a horse on it and a lion, I think.
Not bad for something in the gutter.
It has. Oh boy, I'm tired. I'm hungry. I guess we'll see you.
Okay, we're filming.
Coffee cans. I bought Maxwell coffee in them, and I think they're interesting looking. They have the hex sign on it, and then just gold printed coins.
Okay.
It's a Baghdad tobacco jar, and it had a lid on it that was the same color as the rim around here, the dark blue. And it was old when I was a little girl. I think they used to keep smoking tobacco in it. I don't know. But I was never used for tobacco in my house. My dad chewed. A mason jar, patent November the 30th, 1858. I have quite a few jars that has that same patent on it. But this doesn't have a neck on it. It makes it hard to tighten up the lid. They use zinc lids on them. That was about like the one I saw, and then has a bubble in it. About like the one I saw this morning was selling for $7 or $8.
Yeah, it says Rudesheim on the bottom. And that's from Stowe, Vermont.
Yeah, we were there too. Lift up high, head to the hills. I love that. I want that. That is great. You know, things that I thought when I was 30 would be 50 years old now. Use this when I was at home. This lamp. It's a beautiful lamp.
You say you were at home, you meant when you were little, right?
Yeah, when I was young. A school teacher gave it to me years ago. It was
What do you have?
on the back. It's Austria with a crown and has MUB on it. Mug.
That's a double S in German and Dutch in Austria. Austria is German, I believe. It speaks German. So it's actually MUSS.
Oh, is it? Okay, beautiful dish. This was the bread dish.
And how did you come across it?
A school teacher gave it to me. She and her sister had bought it for her I lived on the farm when I got it, so uh, it's not. It was old because they.
I'm sorry, I clipped you for a second. You just said they had bought it years before for their mother?
And for their mother, for a new dinner set.
And they gave that to you along with a matching bread plate that's in the
And
cabinet.
4 other plates.
And one of those is right up here. I remember you serving deviled eggs on that plate, I believe.
My friend Maureen Bear gave me that. It's pretty, isn't it?
Yep.
She was my best friend. I guess she was a person that loved me more than anybody else ever loved me. Well, she said I was the mother she never had.
And what's this painting? Tell me about this painting. And it's
Lester's girlfriend had been in our house one time, and as a summer project at Towson State University, she had taken a course and she drew the house, painted the house. It isn't quite exactly like it really was. It had 2 long windows down here and just 2 up here, and the window up here was a little different. But it looks so much like the house on the farm. And there she has a cat on her, and that wall was there. And there's a chicken, there's a chicken, there's a chicken, and the dog.
so she remembered your farm pretty well.
Well, she had a good memory for the first time she was there. It really looks like the house, except the windows are different. And the berry.
Lester made that. When was it that he made that?
Oh, since I've been down here.
Oh, okay.
It has something only costs $3.
I think that was the piece of wood that he used, cost $3.
Mm-hmm.
And so that,
And it looked like the house, except it had a porch with a
railing,
railing.
and the barrack was a barn.
Yeah, and it was way back. And when the wind blew, this barrack would rock on its foundation, and it never did blow over. We tore it down.
You can remember that they used to harvest wheat using some sort of something being towed behind 4 horses.
Mm-hmm. See, the legs look a lot alike, except it doesn't have the bars on the legs like it does this picture. Jacobian.
How did you come into these chairs?
Nancy gave them to me. So they'll go back to Nancy, go back to your family, David.
Did they come from the auction in Crumpton?
Yes. This I had bought from Mrs. Hart. It was 75 years ago when I moved to Jarrettsville, and I lived there 29 years, so 75 and 29 is 104. And then I moved down here in 1994, and this is 2005, so.
115.
Mm-hmm. And it has beautiful feet on it.
Claw feet.
It's a beautiful piece of furniture. It's something that we were doing over furniture then, and we decided not to do this over because this looks so pretty hairy. Just put some Varithane on it.
And this is a matching piece. Now, you bought these two as a set?
Yeah, I bought these two for $75. No, I didn't. No, the hutch cost me $75. I don't know if she charged me anything. I bought that at Cooptown. I think I did. It's a beautiful, it's a Queen Anne chair, I think.
Tell me about this washstand.
Well, I grew up with this washstand, and we used to keep a basin, a water basin on it, and water bucket. So it has plenty of scars. It also has square nails in the top. But it had a little back on it. It was real cute, a little back. And it had two little shells for a soap dish. Dining room suit.
The green chair went to a dining room suit.
Yeah, I had bought the dining room suit when I moved to on the farm. The lady sold it to me. It had a nice big table that got burned up in a fire. We had a fire in the house, and he burnt the table. It wasn't any good anymore. But 7 chairs came with it. I don't know where they all are.
And you painted it to match the color that was already on the...
Yeah, and that's the color that the dresser was. It's a nice dresser. The drawers worked real good on it, but it's painted. I was thinking someday I'd remove that paint, but I don't think I'll do it now. See, the drawers just are so nice. I don't know who to, I was going to give it to Laura Lee, but I don't think she wants it.
And the trunk?
No, the dresser.
No, but tell me about the trunk.
The trunk was a trunk my father used when he was a plumber. He carried his clothes and his tools in it. And he started being a plumber when he was in 1900. So the trunk is over 100 years old. I don't know how old it was when he got it. Maybe it was new. Has the original paper in it.
And how about the chair?
The chair, I must have bought that from Cooptown. I think I gave,
You mean for the one on the left?
yeah, Harford County. I think I bought some chairs. I don't think I gave too much for them. It needed to be caned, and Joe Doyle put the cane seat in for me.
And how about this other chair?
Oh, that I bought here in Chestertown. They had an antique shop, and I bought 4 chairs. But they're all different. They were painted green and off-white.
Is that where the chair you're sitting on came from as well?
Yes, yes. And see the battles, they have a lot of battle scars. They were painted, but I had the paint removed, so they show the wear. Didn't try to fix that. And this is almost worn smooth. A lot of feet went on that.
Oh yeah.
Aren't they pretty?
And how about this lamp?
Oh my, Janet made that lamp one year for Christmas. Took one of my jars, half-gallon jar, but it needs, I think I need to take the top off and tighten it up. I don't know. Lester made those picture frames.
And the panoramic pictures inside them. With my mother appearing twice in the bottom panorama.
Yeah.
No, 3 times. Oh no, that's Janet on the left.
Janet 3 times.
Janet's, yeah, 3 times, and my mother is twice.
The ivory, and I had the paint removed, and it has pretty designs on the front of the drawers. And each drawer has a lock, but I don't know where the keys are. It's the way they used to make furniture, with locks. We bought these hinges to go on there. It was
What is it we're looking at?
washstand.
And how did you get it?
Mom Hilton gave it to Harry, and it was brown, and he decided to put black stain on it because it went with the black bedroom set. But I wish he hadn't, but that's the way he wanted it.
This is Virginia's baptism certificate.
Larry and Janet look alike, and Robin and Lester look alike. And they're cousins, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Cruising.
Stella Cruising, your best friend.
Not really. Well, Marie was the best friend I ever had because she lived. Estella was my good friend. And that's her grandchildren with her.
There's a young Bill Callaway.
Yeah, Bill wanted me to have that picture. That was before they were married. I never put it up for years. The Hart kids. That's my godchild, Jeannie.
Your brother Paul's daughter. Who's this? Tell us about your granddaughter that we're photographing here.
There's Larry's 3 children.
Great-grandson Greg, Alicia's son. Great-granddaughter Nikki, Kim's daughter.
She's great-granddaughter. What is she? Great-granddaughter.
And who's this family?
And that is Kim's children, my great-grandchildren.
Granddaughter Becky and her sister with her. This is a set of pictures from the 50th wedding anniversary of Harry and Virginia.
Nancy made that for me.
And that 50th anniversary had lots of skits and jokes written by Janet. She was very clever.
Very clever, is right. Wasn't she pretty?
Mm. Beth playing flute. She played 2 songs, I believe. 2 favorite hymns, my mom and Papa, respectively. Now this one is a 3D photo, and you might be able to tell that as I shift my perspective a little bit. The flowers in the lower left corner flicker. This one's a 3D as well. Not as easy to see. And another three-dimensional. It was only a few years when Nancy Hart was taking three-dimensional pictures. Had to send them away, pretty far away to get them developed. This is a framed copy of the invitation to the 50th wedding anniversary. I'm going to read this. A walk down memory lane. A walk down memory lane dedicated to Aunt Ginny. Soaking Robin's drawers by the dozens, to swim in the branch with all the cousins. Going fishing with thread and pins on a stick. Drinking real cow's milk and then feeling sick. Flying around in the back of your truck. Terry's missing barbed wire was just dumb luck. Feeding manure to your big hungry hogs. Running in pastures, jumping over logs. Cheryl's cow pie slip in her Sunday best. While Linda giggled like a bratty pest. Finding Banty eggs hidden in the hay. Spending hours on end for one game of croquet. Hanging over the branch by a flimsy twine. Waving to Aunt Ginny as though it was fine. Sunday school and chores were good for our hearts, but making you and Harry laugh were our favorite parts. Working all winter to write up a skit to perform in the summer till you're sick of it. You've been our inspiration for many a year, and that's why we love you and hold you so dear. Linda and Cheryl. Okay, tell us about your sofa.
Always wanted to get a three-piece living room suite like they used to have. So when I was working, I got a little money and decided to buy living room furniture. And what I do, I go out and I buy old things. And I bought this Duncan Fife sofa, and I've had it recovered for 2 times. And I think I gave $35 for the sofa. And the drum table I gave $50 for. That was a leather covered drum table. It's Duncan Fife design. And the chairs, the rocker and the other chair, was something I grew up with that my mother had, and it was when I was a little girl. That's been years ago. It was old then because it had a Excelsior coming out of the bottom where the springs had gone through the bottom of the chair.
And Excelsior is horsehair.
Excelsior was wood that was...
Oh, that's what it was.
It was wood. And that's what they
Shredded
used to
wood.
pad furniture with years ago. And it had springs in the seat and springs in the back, and like a dummy I threw them away. And then the other 2 chairs are chairs that match it, side chairs.
So
I had a sofa.
you grew up with them, and then they were worn out by the time you got them and you fixed them up again.
When I was a little girl, they were worn out. So that's been 86 years ago, 86 and a half years ago. So Lord knows how old they are now. They were old then. Worn out then. So they're over 100 years old. The original frame, and Betty gave it to Laura Lee. Betty gave that picture to Laura Lee. My mother was a beautiful woman.
She was about 18 in this picture?
Huh?
Did you say she was about 18 in this picture?
18 to 20, I'd say.
Whose birth announcement are we looking at?
And my cousin, Dorothy Stoner.
I noticed the name of the town is Asbestos, Maryland, but they also put in that it was in Carroll County.
Well, it is Carroll County.
Yep. But nowadays people don't put what county it is on the
No.
on the address. And it also has a bar over the O in asbestos to indicate that it's a long O.
Okay, this is Floyd Hart, Lester Hart's father, Harry's grandfather, and this was his wife, Cora Davis. And this was Harry's father when he was young. He's got the boys are showing their watches.
Go ahead.
This is Harry here. He had just gotten a haircut, and this is Eva, and this is Weaver, his twin sister and brother that was a year older. And this is my cousin, Vernon Hammond, when he went to Sparks High School. He lived with Mom and Dad for a while. He was illegitimate, and of course, Daddy just thought he was wonderful because he liked kids. And, all right.
Yep.
This is taken in 1923. This is me. Well, skinny little thing, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is my cousin Bobby, my cousin Dorothy with my cousin Daryl, and this is Unc Harry and my Aunt Helen. This is Aunt Carrie, my dad's sister. This is my grandfather Hammond. It's the only picture I have of him. He was a little man, and you can see he's not any bigger than his girls. And then this is Aunt Sally, and this must be one of the grandchildren. It's the only picture I have of Pop Hammond. I can remember he had a store on Falls Road, and the store is still standing when I was there. And he and his oldest daughter kept store there.
Now there's some pictures just below that are very dark.
Oh,
you.
I remember when they
But they look a little better in the camera actually than they do
Oh, do
here.
they?
Yeah.
Okay, this one is of my grandmother and me. I'm holding a hat, I think.
I think
At
that's,
Emory, that was taken at Emory Grove. I remember the day they were taken.
Why do you think they're so dark?
What they called them was tintype pictures.
Aha.
And the other one in the middle is,
I think it's the same. Maybe.
this is David, this is David and Unc Harry.
Mm-hmm.
This was taken at Thornton Mill Road. See the goose there? I can remember the goose got me one time when I was going to the toilet, and I really had a big bruise on my hip, on my leg, upper leg. And this is Dad and my grandmother Barnes. I don't know when that was. I remember Grandma Barnes visiting us. This was all taken at Thornton Mill Road. Oh, in 1926. Yeah, have flowers. We had a lot of peonies and roses, and they picked flowers to take to the graves at Finksburg for my two little brothers and my sister. This is Grandma Barnes, my mom's grandmother. This is me. This is Daryl. This is Unc. And this is my Aunt Helen. And here's Unc. Said he had strawberries in his pocket, and that was taken.
There's a bunch of kids who've been swimming, it looks like.
Yeah, and look at the swimming outfits. How would you like to go swimming in those? And this is my dad. I think he was taken in 1920. He's building something.
Who are we looking at?
This is my mother. She was beautiful. Look at her beautiful hair.
And she, again, like the one we saw in the other room, she's between 19 or 20, something like that.
18 or 20 or something.
And then below that.
It's my cousin Vernon Hammond, and Dad loved him. He's wearing Dad's watch there.
Okay. Oh, this is your father when he was younger.
Yeah, 1916. And this is the guy he worked with. I think he's the one that was a Barnes, related to Mom's people.
So he was probably an apprentice plumber at that point?
Yes. But see, they dressed up on Sunday. We used to dress up on Sunday.
Tell us about this photo.
Dad was 15 that day, November 16th, 1901. And notice the shoes he has on. And isn't he little for 15? And that's his mother with him. And she was a pretty plump lady, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm. Okay, what are we looking at?
This is Grandma peeling an elk. She's holding elk. And this is the house we lived in when we first moved there. It had pretty porches, stone house, a beautiful house.
That's Thornton Mill Road?
On Thornton Mill Road. And this is David. And the porch had fallen off then. Still had the pantry. This is me on the riding stall beside the house. And you can see this. Evidently they wore little pants. I don't know. And this is me at Christmas time. I come home from school and I wanted my picture taken with my Christmas gifts. So I went over to the neighbors who had a house like ours.
This is 1925 when Virginia was 7 years old.
And I remember the day that was taken. And look at the sour look on my face. I still have that sour look.
Are you the one who wrote on the back of it?
Yeah.
Ain't that a cute smile? And your Aunt Alice next to it. Start with this.
Harry and his brother Lacey.
And then next to it.
It's Billy and I, taken in 1935.
And over here.
Bobby, my brother Bob. Then me and Billy and Hazel Males. And here's David with Paul and Bob between his legs. And this is, I remember the day this was taken. This is our neighbor, Mrs. Gibson, and Uncle Harry and Paul and I. We went for a walk. And there she's sitting near the stream like she's fishing. And this is Billy. Oh my God, don't you?
Okay.
This is Paul. And this is Billy there, if you can see him.
Mm-hmm.
And Sis, and Bobby, and Vivian. And Mom is up here, and my cousin Philip is here.
Who is this?
Ethel, Harry's sister,
And then down below it.
is her sister Zella. And Harry's brother Weaver.
This is, where were you
Weaver.
pointing? Oh, okay, this is Weaver.
Came to see the first time I saw him.
That's Libby Ryan.
And we walked over to her house.
And
We
then,
found out she's 13 and we started going together. He didn't go with Libby.
and that's also Libby on the left in this photo on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Working in the orchard, trimming trees.
Tell me about these.
And this, that's Harry and I. That was a dumb picture to have taken, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
But I was young and dumb. This is
Working in the
Harry
orchard.
and Lester, 10 days old.
We have one more picture of Libby.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Virginia with her son Lester. And then down below, we have more.
Harry was trying to look like a tough guy there. Doesn't look too tough, does he?
Would you ever think he looked tough?
No.
Harry really looks like his son Lester to me, who's Lester's son in that photo.
Les looks like him, doesn't he?
There's Virginia with Lester.
Harry and Lester. He came home from work and that was taken. They worked at the orchard.
This one was Harry and Lester who came home from work. I'm sliding all over the page while you describe it. And who's this beautiful lady on the left?
That's me. You knew that was me. Has it under it.
Well, I recognized your face, actually.
That's his brother Derwart.
And Harry has a cat in his pocket. Janet at 7 months, and Lester at 23 months. Almost 2 years old.
I think the beautiful lady.
Point to
Not
that
so
picture again
beautiful.
and tell us what's in it again.
Okay, she's not really beautiful physically, but inside she is beautiful. And these are her 2 daughters, and this is her grandson.
Aunt Delia.
Aunt Delia, Wilhelm. And I went to school with Letty.
Tell me about the picture in the upper right corner.
Over here? Well, we lived at Whittingham's, and the cook had 3 boys that just adored Lester. And it doesn't look like he's too happy up on the shoulders there. I took the picture, though. And there he is with his daddy on the horse, taking the horse to water.
And this one?
That's me, and Janet, and Lester in 1940.
Tell me about this one.
That's Dad and Lester. Dad bought Lester those jodhpurs and the high top boots. And I took his picture in it. He liked that outfit. The sun was in his eyes there. They were facing the sun. He used to always face the sun. This was taken in Virginia at Easter time. We'd gone down to Grand's. Me, Janet, Lester, Jean, and Gran.
Okay.
I made the dress that Janet has on there. It's Janet and Lester. Lester was 7, I think. This was the picture Harry loved the best of me. It's taken at Mash Bridge. We used to go swimming down there.
Tell me that again.
These were taken before I went to work one Sunday night. They were taken at different times because I had different clothes on.
Say that again.
That was Lester and Janet with their father and their 39 Plymouth. They had just washed it up.
David is on the left with a friend of his from the service. Yes, he's very handsome.
This is Les at school. 7th District. Where is he? Is that him? Wait a minute. There.
That's Lester?
The second one there. 1st grade. River that day.
Which river were you on?
Aquan in Virginia.
It's Virginia's brother, Harry, known to most of his family as Unc, at least by the time I was around, just as he was going into the service in 1944. Okay.
Darrell Blizzard. He was a pilot and he drove his plane home across the ocean.
Say again. What's this?
In Washington. He was being inducted in the Navy that day, and his mother was with him.
Here's a striking picture of him.
Wasn't he handsome? His uniform, he was 25 then. Look how slim he is. Of course, I didn't used to be a fatty as I got to. That's Harry and his Navy buddies.
And then to the right of that, what do we have?
This is my brothers and sisters. Let me see. Betty. Betty, Janet, Lester, Francis, Mom.
It's got to be your dad.
Oh, Dad and Vivian.
And what year was this picture? Looks like it would.
1944. Harry was in the service, and I had those taken to send to him. This is a good one of me, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
See, I
And
had
so's the one next to
buck
it.
teeth, but they're as white as they could be, prettier than these dentures.
Who do we have here? Tell me about the picture in the middle.
This one,
Yep.
David and his buddies in the army in Germany.
And another brother in front of a Jeep.
That's Paul. He worked on motors.
And this is Paul again. Looks like that photo might have come in the envelope that's right over it.
Mm-hmm. It's free.
Mm. Tell me about this.
Lester and Janet in 1945. I don't think Harry was home yet. I remember, oh, this is what I had started when he was in the service.
You started the cows, you mean?
Mm-hmm. And this is me and Reddy, a cow I bought, 1945. I was kind of heavy there, wasn't I? Chunky.
Healthy? Tell me what we're looking at.
Something that Paul had sent to me when he was in the service. He was very artistic.
Tell me about this.
That's Elmer in 1945.
The first bull you had?
Yeah, I bought him. Bought Elmer.
And Harry and or Lester and Janet and a dog, it looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
a cat or two. And then over here, the three of you.
I had that taken to send to Harry when he was in the service. I went to Red Line to have that picture taken. See, I wasn't always wrinkled. You can see.
It's another letter from Paul, and he sent a photo of a peacock. He sat around and waited for it to display its tail. There's another photo of Paul. Photo of one of the tanks that he worked on in front of a Jeep.
He was in the motor corps. He worked on machinery.
And he does look a little like Brady in the upper right photo there.
He was good looking, wasn't he? Sort of has Brady's look.
Okay.
It's Winnie and David before they were married. Lester, Janet, Darwart, Larry, and Bootsy. In 1947, they were at our house for a while. On shorts real quick. And that's the dog
this
we
photo,
had,
you mean?
Lady, I guess. There's a cat down there. Where there's Janet, there's animals. Get fit.
This is the house in Jarrettsville in 1965, right soon after you got it.
It's 1965 on the 19.
Okay, and that's the house 5 years later in 1970?
No, that's, I don't know.
I think that, it's hard to read, but I think it's 1970.
This is Alicia on Robin's back. Isn't it Alicia and Beth, I think?
Robin in front of the house. This is a horse named Fury, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's Kim. I don't know who this is.
But just a moment. This is Kim in this shot.
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
Dean and Robin. Debbie and Robin. Alicia and Robin. And Debbie and Robin. He was a pilot and he's retired now.
Who is that?
Bill Helly. He sent me that one year for Christmas.
And how does he know your family?
Oh, well, Janet went to school with him and he had a crush on her. Yep.
Virginia in 1973.
Picture that was taken of Lee. Old grinding stone that was left at Salem Church Road. They used to sharpen axes on it.
I remember that being in your flower garden near the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
I always wished it would work, but it was locked up.
Mm-hmm. It's a Sis's basement.
And what were you celebrating?
Daddy's birthday. Down at Francis' basement. Where we lived on Thornton Mill Road, the porch had fell off. There's a pantry there, is there a room there?
Let me zoom in on that. Okay.
You went into the kitchen here, this went into the hall, and that's when we left there, the porch was off. Do I have
Who's
your-
this?
Me. When I was little, wasn't I a skinny little thing?
That's you standing next to your mother?
Mm-hmm. And Unc, she's holding Unc. Wasn't she pretty?
Oh, yeah.
That Daddy put on the foundation of the beautiful bank barn we had that burned down. Dates are wrong then.
These are pictures of Thornton Mill Road after they had moved out, and then the new owners had put a porch on the front.
And on the back.
And on the back. So this is the front, or is this the back?
Beautiful house.
These two are the front, and this is the new back porch that had been put on.
It was built.
Who are we looking at?
Phyllis, Lester's girlfriend, who was taken in 1959.
How old was she in this
She
picture?
was 19. She looks like she's 13.
This is Robin's first grade class in 1958, without Robin. This is Robin's second grade class. Could you point to Robin for us?
Oh.
And then her third grade class. And point to her in this picture.
Is that her?
Yep. Say it again.
Before Lester went in the service, or when he went in the service.
A trip to Rockland, Maine in 1959 to visit Lester, serving in the military.
I forget.
Go ahead.
This is me and Aunt Martha sitting on some steps at Mom's house at Parkton. You can't see the steps for these hefty ladies. This is Nancy in 1960. And this is Brigida, Derwit's wife, in 1960.
60 again. Tell us about this picture.
And Janet and Gloria graduated from Salisbury State College. It's Salisbury State University, now a great big school.
This is Robin's 4th grade class. And what did you just point out to me?
Margie Burt's was her neighbor that she had so much fun with. They walked all over the fields and the farm.
Tell me about this picture.
This is my daughter-in-law, Nancy. This is the farmhouse at Jarrettsville. I think Lester might have taken that picture. I don't know. This is the first year Janet taught at Slate Ridge, and this was her principal. See how young she is?
Apparently the military was too cheap for razors. Tell me about this. Tell me about this picture.
It's our house at Jarrettsville. We hadn't been there long.
I don't see a white fence.
No, 1965. And this is Laura Lee. That drawing, that was taken before Laura Lee went to Germany with her mother.
And this one?
Oh, that's Dad and Harry. There's a lumber for the barn. They're standing beside the lumber before he started building the barn.
Robin's 6th grade class. Alicia eating her first birthday cake.
It must be her first birthday cake.
And in 1965, Laura Lee and Nancy and Alicia.
This is Alicia giving Harry a kiss. Isn't this sweet? In 1960.
That was 1966, actually.
This is Alicia looking at the fireplace in 1966. She was such a baby doll. I can't tell who it is. Alicia there. And that's Rhonda underneath the counter.
What's Harry doing there?
Chopping up fruit for fruit salad.
And below that,
Apples.
he's giving a bottle to a baby. We can't figure out who it is.
Yeah.
It's Laura Lee with Virginia. End of a busy 1969 Christmas at grandparents'. A picture of Beth and the picture of Nancy and children at the Washington Zoo, both from 1972. Harry Hart hanging from his tiptoes on a branch at a summer picnic.
This is Mom. This is Aunt Martha, and this is Mom's sister, Aunt Nellie. Look how little she is, and she lived to be 101. I don't know how old Aunt Martha was. Aunt Martha was a big woman. This is Vivian and Tammy, right after Tammy was born.
Alicia was born on Gran's 70th birthday.
Wait a minute, yeah.
And then below that, it's Mom Hammond and Gran.
Mm-hmm. It was before Laura Lee went to Germany. It's Laura Lee. And Robin looked so sad in 1963.
Tell me about this one.
That's
again.
me.
And it was on a Sunday, you said?
This is on a Sunday. We dressed up on Sunday.
This is on a Sunday.
And I love those glasses. I thought they flattered me.
Okay, tell me about this.
We were on our way to Indiana. Mom went with us to see Lester. Robin and the dog and the crooked stick taking a walk. She loved that dog. That was a lady was her name.
Robin's brother, Timmy. What's this?
Robin and Andy sitting on the front porch.
And next to it?
Beautiful big windows in the living room. The house was Victorian style with big windows.
It's the big barn that Harry built. Tell me about the windows.
They were long windows on the first floor. They were a little smaller on the second, and this is the third floor. You looked in there against a chimney that went up there.
And this is on the farm that you and Harry owned.
Good Lord.
Durward in the Service,
Those boys are
1958.
Oh,
Pat and Larry.
he really.
Virginia's father and her father's brother, Winfield.
Got him down.
Scotty, Lorley, and Kim. Harry Hart was rewarded $495 for his cost-saving suggestions, which added up to about $3,100 per period. I'm guessing that was per month, but I don't know for sure. That again?
This is Mom's first friend she met when they had moved on Thornton Mill Road. She knew her for years and years. That was Mom's birthday.
Bumper crop of potatoes.
Picnics back here.
Larry, Pat, Scotty, Kim, and Rhonda, 1977.
I was a building up on the hill we called the town. Want it. So's Lester.
Beautiful cake made for Mom Hammond by Janet.
Well, you kids went with us one time. The best every one I can. Baked a turkey, made 2 pies, baked bread, and for a Thanksgiving feast. This is a little house she lived in.